we thine unworthy servants here gathered together in thy name, do most humbly beseech thee to send down thy heavenly wisdom from above, to direct and guide us in all our consultations, and grant that we, having thy fear always before our eyes, and laying aside all private interests, prejudice, and partial affections, the result of all our counsels may be to the glory of thy blessed name, the maintenance of true religion and justice, the safety, honor, and happiness of the Queen, the public weal, peace, and tranquility of St. Lucia, and the uniting and knitting together of the hearts of all persons and estates within the same, in true Christian love and charity, one towards another, through Jesus Christ, our Lord. Amen.
Amen.
The grace of our Lord Jesus Christ, the love of God, and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with us all, now and forevermore. Amen.
Announcements. Good morning, Senators. I beg to report that I have received correspondence from the Speaker of the House of Assembly advising that the following motions and bills were passed in the House of Assembly and forwarded to the Senate for its concurrence. Finance Administration Act, Resolution of Parliament to borrow for capital expenditure, Natural Disaster Management, Immediate Response, Tropical Storm Matthew, National Savings and Development Bonds Act, Resolution of Parliament to raise funds by the issue of savings bonds, National Savings and Development Bonds Amendment Bill, Motor Vehicles and Road Traffic Amendment Bill, the Appropriation 2018-2019 Bill, deemed a money bill in accordance with the provisions of Article 49(2) of the St. Lucia Constitution, Order 1978. I would like to say a special thank you to Archdeacon Christian Glasgow of the Anglican Church, our chaplain, for his kind donation of a Bible to the Parliament of St. Lucia. We truly appreciate your kind gift, and it will be put to good use. Finally, it would be remiss of me not to acknowledge the presence of the former President of the Senate, Claudius Francis. Statements from ministers. Papers to be laid. Honorable Minister in the Ministry of Finance and Leader of Government Business.
Madam President, I beg to lay the following papers standing in my name. Statutory Instrument Number 11 of 2018, Citizen by Investment Amendment Regulations. Statutory Instrument Number 12 of 2018, Invest St. Lucia, Cantonment Vieux-Fort, Vesting Order. Statutory Instrument Number 13 of 2018, Fiscal Incentives, St. Lucia Linen Services Limited Order. Statutory Instrument Number 14 of 2018, Price Control Amendment Number 3 Order. Statutory Instrument Number 15 of 2018, Excise Tax Amendment of Schedule 1, Number 3 Order. Statutory Instrument Number 16 of 2018, Finance Administration Act, Resolution of Parliament, authorizing the Minister of Finance to borrow by means of advances. Statutory Instrument Number 17 of 2018, Tourism Incentives, Drake Intertrade Limited Order. Statutory Instrument Number 17A of 2018, St. Lucia Parliament Proclamation proroguing Parliament. Statutory Instrument Number 18 of 2018, Tourism Incentives Island Buggies Limited Order. Statutory Instrument Number 18 of 2018, my apologies, Madam President. Statutory Instrument Number 19 of 2018, St. Lucia Parliament Appointment of Session of Parliament. Statutory Instrument Number 20 of 2018, Price Control Amendment Number 4 Order. Statutory Instrument Number 21 of 2018, Excise Tax Amendment of Schedule 1 Number 4 Order. Statutory Instrument Number 22 of 2018, Legal Profession Eligibility, Jalaine Milani Prevost Order. Statutory Instrument Number 23 of 2018, Legal Profession Eligibility, Sherilyn Lavina Christopher Order. Statutory Instrument Number 24 of 2018, Free Zone Designation of Free Zone or Designation of Free Zone Order. Statutory Instrument Number 25 of 2018, Invest St. Lucia Shock Castries Vesting Order. Statutory Instrument Number 26 of 2018, Fiscal Incentives, Caribbean Quality Meats Limited Order. Statutory Instrument Number 27 of 2018, Citizenship by Investments Revocation Order. St. Lucia National Trust, Annual Report for the period April 1st, 2015 through March 31st, 2016. St. Lucia National Trust Annual Report for the period April 1st, 2016 through March 31st, 2017. Estimates of revenue and expenditure 2018-2019. And finally, Madam President, Economic and Social Review 2017.
Motions. Motion number 1. Honorable Leader of Government Business.
Madam President, I beg to move the following motion standing in my name. Be it resolved that Parliament authorizes the Minister for Finance to raise on the regional government securities market or through private placement at a maximum rate of 7.25%. A, the amount of 200 million for financing the 2018-19 budget, and B, the amount of EC $485 million for financing existing budgets or existing debts. Madam President, this is a straightforward motion, for within the estimates of revenue and expenditure, we have budgeted, as far as capital expenditure is concerned, an amount in the region of $284.6 million to cover our capital expenses. And this motion is simply asking for Parliament's approval or authorization to borrow $200 million to finance our capital projects. And of course, the second, Madam President, is that of financing our existing debts in the amount of $485 million.
Honorable Senators, the question is that Parliament authorizes the Minister for Finance to raise on the regional government securities market or through private placement at a maximum rate of 7.25%. A, the amount of 200 million East Caribbean dollars for financing the 2018-2019 budget. B, the amount of $485 million East Caribbean dollars for financing existing debts. I now put the question. As many as are of that opinion say aye. As many as are of a contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Motion number 2, Honorable Leader of Government Business.
Madam President, I beg to move the following motion standing in my name. Be it resolved, the Parliament authorizes the Minister for Finance to borrow US $750 million from the Caribbean Development Bank's Special Fund Resources, SFR, to finance the Natural Disaster Management, Immediate Response, Tropical Storm Matthew project. Be it further resolved that A, the interest is payable at a rate of 2.5% per annum on the amount of the principal withdrawn and outstanding. And B, the loan is repayable in 32 equal or approximately equal and consecutive quarterly installments on each due date of the first day of January, the first day of April, first day of July, first day of October, commencing on the first due date immediately following the expiration of 2 years after the date of the loan agreement, or on a later due date that the Caribbean Development Bank specifies in writing. Again, Madam President, we all here experienced the devastation of Tropical Storm Matthew and the effect it had on our economy, particularly that of the agricultural sector. And there are certain recovery efforts that we must undertake because of this storm. And the government sees it fitting to undertake a few projects that will assist in bringing back certain sectors of the economy to at least where it was prior to that storm. And in putting all these projects together, Madam President, the government is seeking Parliament's approval to borrow from the Caribbean Development Bank the amount of $750,000 US. $750,000 US, Madam President. And this, Madam President, I'm sure will go a very long way for rebuilding our economy.
Honorable Senators, the question is that Parliament authorizes the Minister for Finance to borrow United States dollars $750,000 from the Caribbean Development Bank's Special Fund Resources, SFR, to finance the Natural Disaster Management, Immediate Response, Tropical Storm Matthew project. Be it further resolved, A, the interest is payable at a rate of 2.5% per annum on the amount of the principal withdrawn and outstanding. B, the loan is repayable in 32 equal or approximately equal and consecutive quarterly installments on each due date of the first day of January, first day of April, first day of July, first day of October, commencing on the first due date immediately following the expiration of 2 years after the date of the loan agreement, or on a later due date that the Caribbean Development Bank specifies in writing. I now put the question. As many as are of that opinion say aye. As many as are of a contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Bills. Honorable Leader of Government Business. National Savings and Development Bonds Amendment.
Madam President, I beg to move the first reading of a bill shortly entitled National Savings and Development Bonds.
National Savings and Development Bonds Amendment.
Honorable Leader of Government Business.
Madam President, I beg to move for the suspension of Standing Order number 49-2 to allow the bill to go through its remaining stages at this sitting.
I now put the question. As many as are of that opinion say aye. Aye. As many as are of that opinion, of the contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Leave is granted. Proceed, Honorable Leader of Government Business.
Madam President, I beg to move the second reading of a bill shortly entitled National Savings and Development Bonds Amendment.
Honorable Senators, the question is that the National Savings and Development Bonds Amendment Bill be read a second time. Honorable Senators, I now put the question. As many as are of that opinion say aye. As many as are of a contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it.
An act to amend the National Savings and Development Bonds Act, Cap 15.25.
We will take it clause by clause. Clause 2.
Amendment of Section 3.
Clause 2. Clause 2 stands part of the bill.
Aye.
Clause 1.
Short title.
Clause 1 stands part of the bill.
Aye.
Honorable Senators, the question is that the committee rises and the bill be reported. I now put the question. As many as are of that opinion say aye.
Aye.
As many as are of the contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Honorable Senators, I beg to report that the National Savings and Development Bonds Amendment Bill went through committee stage without amendments. Honorable Leader of Government Business.
Madam President, I move that the report of the committee be adopted and the bill be read a third time and passed.
Honorable Senators, the question is that the report of the committee be adopted and that the National Savings and Development Bonds Amendment Bill be read a third time and passed. I now put the question. As many as are of that opinion say aye. As many as are of a contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it.
Be it enacted by the Queen's Most Excellent Majesty, by and with the advice and consent of the House of Assembly and the Senate of St. Lucia, and by the authority of the same as follows. This act may be cited as the National Savings and Development Bonds Amendment Act 2018.
Motor Vehicles and Road Traffic Amendment. Honorable Leader of Government Business.
Madam President, I beg to move the first reading of a bill shortly entitled Motor Vehicles and Road Traffic Amendment.
Motor Vehicles and Road Traffic Amendment.
Honorable Leader of Government Business.
Madam President, I beg to move for the suspension of Standing Order number 492 to allow the bill to go through its remaining stages at this sitting.
Honorable Senators, the question is that the Standing Order number 492 be suspended in order to allow the Honorable Leader of Government Business to proceed with the remaining stages of the bill at this sitting. I now put the question. As many as are of that opinion say aye. As many as are of the contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Leave is granted. Proceed, Honorable Leader of Government Business.
Thank you, Madam President. And I beg to move the second reading of a bill shortly entitled Motor Vehicles and Road Traffic Amendment.
Honorable Senators, the question is that the Motor Vehicles and Road Traffic Amendment Bill be read a second time. I now put the question. As many as are of that opinion say aye. As many as that are of the contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it.
An act to amend the Motor Vehicles and Road Traffic Act, Cap 8.01.
Again, we will go clause by clause. Clause 2.
Interpretation.
Clause 2 stands part of the bill.
Aye.
Clause 3.
Amendment of Section 26.
Clause 3 stands part of the bill.
Aye.
Clause 4.
Amendment of Section 28.
Clause 4 stands part of the bill. Clause 1.
Short title.
Clause 1 stands part of the bill.
Aye.
Honorable Senators, the question is that the committee rises and the bill be reported. I now put the question. As many as are of that opinion say aye.
Aye.
As many as are of the contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Honorable Senators, I beg to report that the Motor Vehicles and Road Traffic Amendment Bill went through committee stage without amendment. Honorable Minister in the Ministry of Finance and Leader of Government Business.
Thank you, Madam President. And I move that the report of the committee be adopted and the bill be read a third time and passed.
Honorable Senators, the question is that the report of the committee be adopted and that the Motor Vehicles and Road Traffic Amendment Bill be read a third time and passed. I now put the question. As many as are of that opinion say aye. Aye. As many as are of a contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. I think the ayes have it.
Be it enacted by the Queen's Most Excellent Majesty, by and with the advice and consent of the House of Assembly and the Senate of St. Lucia, and by the authority of the same as follows. This act may be cited as the Motor Vehicles and Road Traffic Amendment Act 2018.
Appropriation 2018-2019. Honorable Leader of Government Business.
Madam President, I beg to present for the first reading a bill shortly entitled Appropriation 2018-2019.
Appropriation 2018-2019.
Honorable Leader of Government Business.
Madam President, I beg to move for the suspension of Standing Order 49-2 to enable this bill to go through its remaining stages at this sitting.
Honorable Senators, the question is that Standing Order number 49-2 be suspended in order to allow the Honorable Leader of Government Business to proceed with the remaining stages of the bill at this sitting. I now put the question. As many as are of that opinion say aye. Aye. As many as are of the contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Leave is granted. Proceed, Honorable Leader of Government Business.
Madam President, I beg to move for the second reading a bill shortly entitled Appropriation 2018-2019.
Senator Honorable Mary Isaac.
Thank you, Madam President. I beg to invoke Standing Order 35-3 to suspend 35-2 to allow the Leader of Government Business to make his presentation without interruption.
May I have that standing order again, please?
Madam President, I invoke 35-3 to suspend 35-2.
Honorable Senators, the question is that the Honorable Leader of Government Business be allowed to proceed uninterrupted in accordance with 35-2 of the standing orders. I now put the question. As many as are of that opinion say aye. As many as are of the contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it.
Thank you very much, Madam President. And let me officially welcome you to your inaugural sitting of the Senate. And I'm sure all of us would wish you well during your tenure as President of the Senate. Madam President, it has become almost customary now that whenever this House meets, there seems to be an interest, or there have always been a quotation from the Holy Word, the Holy Bible. And in the lower house, the leader of the opposition leader, I think, quoted from Joshua 1:9. But right before I took my seat, just before I took my seat this morning, my wife, who is towards my back, she gave me a very good scripture to read from Exodus chapter 14, verse 14. And it reads, Madam President, "The Lord will fight for you, and you won't have to do a thing." The Lord will fight for you, and you won't have to do a thing. And this is very comforting, Madam President, because according to the very same scripture, it states that we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against powers and rulers in very high places. We fight against spiritual wickedness. And Madam President, who am I to fight that battle, but to leave it unto the Lord? So I want to thank my wife for this very encouraging scripture. Madam President, before I delve into my presentation of the appropriation bill, I want to thank the staff of the Ministry of Finance for the very hard work and effort they put into the preparation of the appropriations bill, the estimates of revenues and expenditure, and the economic and social review. I want to thank also the other supporting departments within the government in putting these three documents together. Madam President, I also want to thank the Prime Minister for his foresight, for his vision, and for the esteemed privilege he has given to me to be part of his cabinet, to be part of a team of reformers, to be part of a team that is creating change in this country. Madam President, being the Prime Minister, it's not an enviable position, because when one has to consider the limited resources of government and the competing wants and desires of ministers of the public, it's not an easy and enviable position to be in, Madam President. And I see almost every day, Madam President, the pressure that the Prime Minister is under, because you have them. All the ministers are asking him for this, for that, but just limited resources. And therefore, Madam President, one has to decide how to spend the limited resources of government, how to spend it. And that's where, Madam President, we have, over the years, historically, developed what is referred to as economic systems. Because, Madam President, economic systems have been developed because you have various schools of thought that believe that with the limited resources available, there are ways and means of ensuring that they are spent in the best possible ways. So you have the development of various economic systems. And two of them come to mind, Madam President. That of the capitalist economic system and that of the communist economic system. And in between these two, Madam President, you have a mixture. Sometimes referred to as a mixed economy. We sometimes refer to as socialism. But the main purpose of these economic systems, Madam President, is because there are various schools of thought that believe that if one is able to spend the limited resources in a particular way, you would be able to achieve economic efficiency. And stemming from these economic systems, Madam President, we have political systems, political parties, I should say. And you have political parties that are affiliated to these economic systems. And it's a well-known fact, Madam President, with the two parties, political parties in St. Lucia, that the St. Lucia Labour Party is associated with the Communist Party, the Socialist Party. It's a well-known fact. So the policies, Madam President, and the programs are tied to the Communist Party. And then you have the United Workers' Party, Madam President. In fact, before I go there, the communist system believes that government should control the resources of the state. Government knows best how to allocate the limited resources of the state. Put everything in government's hands and government will properly and appropriately allocate the resources of the state. Madam President, I am talking about the limited resources of government. Limited resources. And how best to allocate these resources. And I'll show you how, Madam President, our policies are not policies just came from the sky. They are well connected because of the philosophy of the United Workers' Party, the ideology of the United Workers' Party, Madam President. So our policies, Madam President, is different from that of the St. Lucia Labour Party. I said to you earlier, Madam President, the party is associated with the Communist Party.
Point of order, 36A, Madam President.
Senator Henry.
Point of order, 36A. Madam President, the substantive motion is the appropriations bill, and my learned leader of opposition is philosophizing on the issue of the Labour Party and its association. I think this is certainly not consistent with the matter of the appropriations bill and the motion that is before this House.
Honourable Leader of Government Business. The substantive motion is the budget debate. If you can tie it to the budget debate, please proceed.
Madam President, I am doing that, actually. Thank you, Madam, very much, Madam President. I am saying to you, Madam President, that the policies and programs of this administration is tied to its ideology and philosophy. And I'll come to that shortly, Madam President. This is not a communist, the appropriations bill, Madam President, before us is not a communist bill. It's not a communist documents, Madam President. And I'm coming to this, Madam President, and if the member opposite bears patience, he will understand where I'm coming from.
Point of order, Madam President. The member needs to show proof and evidence that the Labour Party is associated with the Communist Party. That statement has been made. This is not consistent with the appropriations bill, Madam Speaker. This is way out.
Honorable Leader of Government Business, I think you have made your point on the affiliation that you state occurs between the St. Lucia Labour Party, etc. I think that we can now proceed as quickly as you can to the rest of your presentation.
Madam President, respectfully, I will take my time, Madam President, with my presentation. I cannot rush through my presentation, Madam President. I am building up on something, Madam President. I state clearly, Madam President, that this government is operating like other governments with very limited resources. And the way we allocate the resources of the state, it has a lot to do with the philosophy of this government, the philosophy and the ideology of the United Workers' Party. Clearly so, Madam President. I'm saying what we do and what we do not. So, Madam President, why do we, as a government, believe that the state's resources, the resources within our economic space, should better or is better spent by the private sector? There's an ideology with that, Madam President. There's a philosophy behind this. It's connected to an economic system in which we believe, Madam President, that the private sector knows best how to spend resources. That's the point. That's the point, Madam President. And that's why, Madam President, throughout our economic history, the United Workers' Party government has always had exceptional performances. There is no doubt about this, Madam President. We have had the lowest unemployment situations in this country historically, lowest levels of poverty, the lowest level of debt, and the highest levels of growth. And this is not per chance, Madam President. It's not per chance. It has a lot to do, Madam President, when we sit down and we decide what policies to put together. Again, Madam President, it is tied to our ideology, our philosophy. And Madam President, in the lower house, they call it magic, but it's called philosophy, economic philosophy. We saw it, Madam President. It's there to show. The records are there. During the reign of the United Workers' Party, Madam President, we had economic prosperity. Prosperity, Madam President. And we saw what happened during the years 79 to 82. The people of St. Lucia gave this government, the opposition, a chance. And we saw what happened, Madam President. We saw what happened during the years 79, 82. The chaotic years of St. Lucia. We saw what happened, Madam President. Violence, rotten eggs thrown at Sir John Compton, feces thrown at him. We had road blockages with burning tires, Madam President. So it is no surprise to me, Madam President, that when a member of the opposition, supporter of the opposition, can write on Facebook, the opposition needs some tear gas and grenades for the next and every sitting of Parliament. Place the grenades under Guy Joseph and Shastley. When Shastley gets up to tell an elected member of the House, sit down, they should just let it off under his, I would not use that, I would not say the word in Parliament, Madam President. Let it off under the philosophy and the strategy and the fear tactic of this opposition. And just in recent times, Madam President, we heard the famous quote, "There shall be no peace. There shall be no peace." But Madam President, let's go back to the years 82, 87. I'm coming to it, Madam President. I'm building on it, Madam President. I have reasons for saying this, Madam President. At the end of the day, I want to say to you that the best government that St. Lucia can have is a government of the United Workers' Party. History tells it, shows it, Madam President. And after the chaotic years, Madam President, of 79, 82, the St. Lucia Labour Party, or the St. Lucian people, put their confidence back into the United Workers' Party from 82 until 97, Madam President. And these were the years we refer to as the golden years. These are the years we refer to as the good old days, Madam President. These were the days when we were respected in the region. We were number one in the OECS, Madam President. And all of this was during the time of the United Workers' Party government. During that time, Madam President, we had the biggest build-up of the middle class. Biggest build-up of the middle class. And farmers were kings and queens. All of these things, Madam President, because we stuck to a philosophy that government or the resources within our economic space is better spent by the private sector, by individuals rather than government. During that time, Madam President, farmers were able to send their children to university. These were the golden days, Madam President. And then we came to 97, to 2006, another dark period in our history. A complete reversal of the accomplishments of the United Workers' Party government, a complete reversal. We saw a depleting of the middle class. We saw levels of high debt and low growth. We saw a period of high unemployment. In fact, the highest unemployment ever recorded in this country was under the Labour Party government of 24.5%. But you know, Madam President, it reminds me of the first book of Samuel, chapter 8, when the people of Israel, they were taken out of bondage, Madam President. They were fed with milk and honey. And they believed that things could be better. And they asked for a king. And the good Lord forewarned them through Samuel that if we were to give you another king, a different king, that king will reverse all, Madam President, all the good things I have done for you. And they insisted. They wanted a king. Therefore, Madam President, a king was given to them. A king was given to St. Lucia, Madam President, to St. Lucia in 97. And the very same thing that a king did in Israel, the very same thing that King did for the people of St. Lucia. The reversal, Madam President, of all the good things and all the accomplishments of the United Workers' Party. So, Madam President, you would see, Madam President, in 96, 97, Madam President, the wages and salaries of government was $166 million. Can you imagine so, Madam President? Before the entrance of that new king in 97, Madam President, St. Lucia, the budget, our budget was only $700 million. $700 million. Our debt to GDP ratio was in the region of 30%. The interest on our debt, Madam President, was only $14 million. 14, 1-4, Madam President. I am talking about the good old days. What the king inherited in 96, 97. The king they begged for. The king that they said that would bring better days, Madam President. But we understand very well that instead of the better days, St. Lucia experienced bitter days under this administration. Can you imagine that, Madam President? St. Lucia was run with on a budget of close to $700 million, Madam President. And that new king in 97, Madam President, in the person of Kennedy Anthony, he brought a budget of $700 million to over $1 billion. To over $1 billion, Madam President, running the very same St. Lucia. Madam President, can you imagine that when that king left office, or he was kicked out of office in 2006, remember I said to you, Madam President, interest payments on debt was only $14 million. Interest increased to 79, close to $80 million. Interest alone, Madam President. Interest alone, a 464% increase in interest payments. Under the king that they asked for. And Madam President, we saw in recent times that wages and salaries again, under the Labour Party government, wages and salaries, Madam President, moved from $350 million to $378 million when they left office in 2016, a jump of close to $30 million. Madam President, today we have a debt of $3.1 billion. A debt of $3.1 billion. In 96, our national debt was $500 million, thereabout, Madam President, in the region of $500 million. Which means, Madam President, between 1996 and 2016, our debt increased by $2.6 billion. $2.6 billion, Madam President, in 20 years. 20 years. And out of that 20 years, Madam President, the St. Lucia Labour Party governed the affairs of this country for 15 years. For 15 years, Madam President. And the funny thing about it is, not funny, but the sad thing about it, Madam President, is that the opposition, they were lucky to govern during the best economic period. The best economic period, Madam President. The best. But yet still, they kill this country. They destroy this country, Madam President. Going back to the debt, Madam President, Out of the $2.6 billion, they are responsible for $1.6 billion, Madam President. So more than half of the current debt is that of the responsibility of the opposition. In 15 years. And Madam President, this has a lot to do. It has a lot to do, Madam President, with the philosophy of this opposition. The philosophy. Because they believe the government has to do everything. The government must employ people for the NICE program. Borrow $19 million every year, Madam President, and say they are creating jobs. But we say differently, Madam President. We say differently. We believe, Madam President, the private sector is best suited to create jobs in the country. And that's why, Madam President, you see a reallocation of the NICE money, which is not borrowed money, by the way, to helping young people get sustainable professional jobs, Madam President. And that's why, Madam President, they are criticizing the Ojo Labs. That's why they are criticizing the Ojo Labs, Madam President. These young people, Madam President, they can actually go to the bank right now and say, I have a job with Ojo Labs. Take a loan to build a home if they want to. Take courses online and get themselves educated. As opposed to, Madam President, a government borrowing $19 million every year and having young people hostage, giving them year-by-year contracts. So this year, I'm going to give you a job and make sure you support this government. Make sure you call the talk shows. Make sure you come to our conferences. Make sure you come and march with us because we are your employer. We are the king. We run things. We are the government. That's how. That's, Madam President, I am talking about a philosophy here, Madam President. I am talking about control, Madam President. That's what it is, Madam President. We're talking about mind-bending, Madam President. That's what I'm saying, Madam President. And if the member opposite had taken time to listen to what I'm talking about, now he's agreeing with me. Madam, we don't believe in this kind of, you know. Madam President, I'm telling you, the best government for St. Lucia is the government of the United Workers' Party. By far, Madam President, there's enough data, there's enough information to clearly demonstrate that we have a better hand in the governance of this country. Absolutely, Madam President, absolutely. No doubt about it, Madam President. So, Madam President, after the people of this country gave this administration another chance between 2001 to 2016, we give them another chance to prove that you have what it takes, to prove yourself again, to prove yourself one more time. And by the way, just one more time. Just one more time. That was the last time, Madam President. The last time. Because, Madam President, they have proven that they don't have what it takes. They don't have what it takes, Madam President. So what it is, Madam President, when you have a country that is not growing, okay, the economy, Madam President, is stagnated. You had 3 years of negative growth. The government is not collecting the required revenues to oil its machinery. Where does the government turn to? The government turns to the banks, the regional bond markets, and borrow money. And what this government knows best, Madam President, is to borrow and spend, to borrow and spend. But, Madam President, when we came into the office almost, 21 months ago or 22 months ago, we got a dilapidated, a very broken economy, a broken system. Broken system, Madam President. Thank you, Madam. Thank you. Broken. He knows it very well. Okay? Very broken system. We saw an economy that could no longer take in any more taxes. We had the highest level of taxation in this country, Madam President, under the last Labour Party administration. In fact, in all of the Labour Party administration. Taxation upon taxation. Taxation upon taxation. And Madam President, I am not here saying that taxing or taxes are not good, are bad. But it's the application of those taxes. It's how you apply the taxes, Madam President. The taxation, that the way it was applied, Madam President, it killed the small businesses in the South especially. You remember that time? You remember that dark period, Madam President, and the other dark period of Labour Party? You knew that, Madam President. Closures of small businesses in this country throughout the length and breadth of the country, especially in Vieux Fort. Especially in Vieux Fort. All because of the high taxation, Madam President, and a weak economy. All because of that. So we came in, Madam President, and we said, look, just too much taxes. The people of this country needs a break. They need a break. They need a break, Madam President. And that's the reason why, Madam President, the 5 to stay alive was coined. We coined the 5 to stay alive, Madam President, because the level of taxation was suffocating the people of this country. Suffocation, Madam President. And we said, look, we need to give the people of this country some breathing space. Breathing space. And one of the first things we did, Madam President, was to reduce the VAT from 15% to 12.5%, a 2.5 percentage points decrease. From 15% to 12.5%, Madam President. And when we came here and we announced that, Madam President, we had the naysayers. We had the prophet of doom on the other side, talking about where we're going to get money to do this, where we're going to get money to do that. You know, we understood on this side, Madam President, exactly what surgery we were undertaking. We knew exactly the level of cut, the cut that we have to give, the depth of the cut. Because, as I said earlier, Madam President, there was suffocation. And therefore, you need some kind of relief. And that's why we reduced it from the 15% to 12.5%. And all kind of talk. And there was talk on the other side, Madam President, as to, they will make up the loss of revenue by doing away with the zero-rated items. Could you please tell us which goods will be zero-rated? All of these things came out on the other side. But, Madam President, you know something? One thing you can count on this side for. We always say what we're going to do. There's no hiding of anything, Madam President. Our policies are always done in the open, Madam President. No secret deals. No secret deals, Madam President. That's why you'll never get a Grindberg here on this side of the House. Never. You'll never get a Rochebel here. Never. Never, Madam President. Because we uphold the principles of transparency and accountability. So, Madam President, what happened? What really happened with the VAT? What really happened with the VAT? really happened with the VAT? I said, when I stood here, that little could provide more. With less, you can get more. With a lower tax rate, you can get more. And in terms of the revenue performance, Madam President, I had it somewhere around. In terms of VAT performance, very interesting. Somewhere around, Madam President. Oh, supposed to be some here. I'm going to get it for you, Madam President. The member opposite wanted me to make reference to the book, and I'm doing just that. Because, Madam President, I don't want to just shoot out numbers. I want to build a context, the context in which these numbers should be read, the context. Madam President, if you turn to the the estimates of revenues and expenditures on page 7, you would see where it speaks of recurrent revenues, or revenue. And code 4404, which is the inland revenue, speaks of the value-added tax. And bear in mind, Madam President, that the reduction in the VAT actually took place February of 2017. Am I right? February 2017. Which means, Madam President, for the fiscal year 2016-2017, the government actually forgo 2 months of the 15% rate. February and March. February and March. So, Madam President, in the fiscal year 2016-17, we collected 10 months of 15% VAT and 2 months of 12.5. But, Madam President, look at that very same page in terms of the amount, the actual amount that was collected during that period. $176.7 million. That is for the local VAT. Local VAT. 176. In terms of import VAT, VAT collected through the customs, it's on page 8. And the actual amount, Madam President, the actual amount collected was $159.8 million. Now, which, when added up, Madam President, it comes to $336.5 million in VAT collection for the year 2016-2017. $336.5 million. Now, let's, Madam President, go into the year 17-18, when you had a full year of 12.5% VAT collection. That's what you tested, a full year. Well, Madam President, as of yesterday, I got the latest updated numbers, the latest numbers. Remember, I said to you earlier, Madam President, the preceding fiscal year, 16-17, the local VAT collection was $176.7 million, with 2 months short of the $515 million. Well, in 17-18, with the full year of 12.5, the local VAT collected $176.1 million. With the 12.5, Madam President. How did it happen? How did it happen, Madam President? The same, almost the same amount that we collected in the local VAT at 15% is almost the same as the amount in 12.5%. Why, Madam President? There is only one explanation, Madam President. It has a lot to do with the buoyant economic activity in this country. Only explanation, Madam President. You have more importation. You have more consumption, local consumption in this country, in both goods and services. And that's why, Madam President, we always believe that growth is necessary in this country. And this government has a growth strategy. And it did not come as a surprise, Madam President, coming from where we were, in the doldrums. And today we can celebrate, or we can say, bravo. Yes, it's a celebration. We are there yet? We're not there yet, Madam President. But we can say, yes, our policies are working. Because we were able to accomplish, depending on which one you use, Madam President, either 3% or 2.5% economic growth. The IMF will use the 3.0, what we refer to as real GDP at market prices. That's what they will use, 3%. But the ECCU would use the 2.5, which is the constant prices. This is what causing all of these increase in revenue collection, Madam President. The increase in economic activity, the increase in our growth as a nation. And Madam President, let me go back to the import one, the import VAT. The import VAT on page 8. In 2016-17, the government collected $159.8 million. And Madam President, as of the 31st of March 2018, Customs collected $156.2 million. Just about 3 million short of what we collected the previous year. So in all, Madam President, when you compare 2016, 2017 with 2018, 2017, or 2015, 2016, or 2016 with 2016, 17, and 2017, 18, you can see, Madam President, in spite of the reduction in the VAT, the government's shortfall in revenue was around $3 million. Did the government lose anything? Did the government lose anything? Did the government lose anything? 3 million? I prefer, Madam President, the government did not collect $3 million from the public than the government spending $3 million on investigations. Where are the returns, Madam President? Where are the returns? Not even a report we can get. Not even a report we can have in this chamber with the $3 million. But there was no loss, Madam President, because we believe that instead of the government taking money from you, you spend the money. You spend it. Because, as I said earlier, going back to the philosophy of the United Workers' Party, we believe that if the public spends $3 million, it's better spent than the government. Better. And that's the reason why, Madam President, part of the reason why, Madam President, we were able to achieve the level of economic growth in this country. 3%, depending on who reads it, or 2.5%. Madam President, the VAT, again, stick to the VAT. I want to turn your attention, Madam President, to the Social and Economic Review, pages 7 and 8. Pages 7 and 8. Madam President, you know, is it 7 and 8? May not be. It might be a different page, Madam President. I'll get there. Madam President, you know, Madam President, I am I am reading these numbers with trust. With trust. With trust. Because, Madam President, you know what's happening? Because the government has performed in such an admirable manner, the opposition tries its best to discredit the numbers, both here in the estimates and in the social economic review. In fact, I saw on Facebook last night where they're having a press conference to demystify the numbers within containing these two books, Madam President. It's a sad day, you know, Madam President. It's a sad day when an opposition can discredit the professionals we have in government. It's a very sad day, Madam President. You know, the first time I witnessed that, Madam President, is when I announced there was a quarter-to-quarter comparison of unemployment in the country. I think it was the third quarter of 2016 compared to the third quarter of 2017. When I said that, in comparison, Madam President, what I said, I reported that the unemployment dropped to 16.8 or 16.5%. The madam from Castries South, Madam President. Sorry, not the madam, but the member from Castries South. I wonder why I say madam, but anyway. Maybe there are good reasons. Madam President, questioning the numbers, the figures, questioning Madam President, like he's a statistics guru. Questioning a well-renowned statistician and Department of Statistics. All because, Madam President, he's trying to undermine the performance of the government, the policies of the government. That's as far you go, Madam President. Why would one go as far as discrediting such esteemed professionals? Why? And now, Madam President, we have the numbers here. That's why I said to you, I am very comfortable. I know the people I work with.
Honorable Leader of Government Business, you have 15 minutes.
Thank you, Madam President. So, Madam President, so I read, as I said earlier, I know the professionals I work with. I know their skills. I know their abilities, Madam President. We don't interfere with this. We don't interfere with this as a government. They work independently. So when you tell me that you have the opposition coming and trying to let people believe that what's in there should not be in there, what a disgrace. It's a disgrace opposition, Madam President. You go as far as that, Madam President? But anyway, the VAT had a critical role to play, as I said. And going back to what I said earlier, Madam President, about the taxation, the high taxation in the country. What is the role of the VAT in all of this? Well, Madam President, a lot of our prices, our local prices, are what we refer to as imported prices. Imported prices. In other words, Madam President, a good example is that of the fuel taxes, the fuel. The local prices here is highly affected by the international prices. So everything we import, Madam President, could either cause the general prices of goods and services to increase or decrease. But we knew very well, Madam President, that 15% was just too much. Too much. And the funny and ironic thing about it, Madam President, that while in opposition, they referred to the VAT as an oppressive tax. It's well known. But the VAT has become a darling to them right now. The oppressor has become a darling.
Madam President, I'd like to invoke Standing Order 35-3 and propose that we allow the Honourable Member an additional 15 minutes within which to complete his presentation, if he so requires.
She had already asked for that. Uninterrupted. Let her know.
Senator Francis, we've already established that he has 1 hour uninterrupted.
Oh, no, not 1 hour, uninterrupted. Uninterrupted, not 1 hour uninterrupted, it's uninterrupted. That's what it says, right? Yeah. Give me that. You go to her? Go to her.
Proceed, Honourable Leader of Government Business.
Thank you kindly, Madam President. And Madam President, I was hoping, I understand, not blaming anyone, but I was hoping that I would uninterrupted means that meant uninterrupted. The momentum is broken. But Madam President, as I was saying earlier, that we understand very well that our local prices basically are more or less imported prices. And given the fact that we had the international economy was actually increasing in terms of the growth in the international economy was actually on the upswing, that would have had more or less a positive impact on our economies here. But in terms of prices, because of the increased demand in these international markets, it could have resulted in increased prices here locally. That's what we refer to as imported prices. And we know that very well that the VAT plays a very critical role in the final prices of goods and services in the country. And Madam President, so what happened to the general prices of goods and services in the country? What happened in the last fiscal year? What happened? Well, it is not what happened, it's not what the opposition said. You know what the opposition said, Madam President? They came with about six items. They sent somebody in the supermarket and get 6 items. What the price was the price of this item was a month ago and the price today. And they came and they said, the prices of goods in the supermarket increased. Oh my goodness. That's unscientific, Madam President. It's almost embarrassing to come and just list 5 or 6 prices and say prices in the supermarket went up. The people on the ground did not feel the reduction. Madam President, if the people of this country did not feel the impact of the reduction in the VAT at 12.5%, I wonder what they felt at 15%. Apparently they were dead. Apparently they were dead with 15%. But Madam President, I'm going to read this in here, page 47 of the Economic and Social Review. In addition, St. Lucia major trading partner countries, namely the United States, United Kingdom, and Japan, recorded inflation rates of 2.1%, 2.6%, and 0.4% respectively. Hear this, Madam President. As a result of this imported inflation, and inflation, Madam President, is not going, you don't calculate inflation by going to the supermarket and listing 6 items and decide whether or not it went down or up or down. The way you do it, Madam President, is a market basket of goods that you have, and you value that market from period to period. That's how you do it. So in that market basket, some goods will go up, or the prices of some goods will go up, and the prices of some goods will go down. And that's how you do it, Madam President. So as a result of this important inflation, upticks were registered in some components of the CPI in 2017. The point here I want to make here, Madam President, significant here. It says here, however, the reduction in the VAT rate from 15.0% to 12.5% in February 2017 contributed to a moderation in these inflationary pressures. It's here. So without the VAT, Madam President, the VAT reduction, Madam President, we would have felt the full brunt of the imported inflation. Full brunt. Which, Madam President, could have impeded the economic growth in this country. But the VAT acts as a buffer against the increases in the prices. That's policy. That's policy. And where did this policy come from, Madam President? Our philosophy, our ideology. That's it, Madam President. The other side, Madam President, would have increased the VAT because they want more revenue. They want more revenue, and I suspected, Madam President, that's where we would have headed. That's where we were heading. That's where we were heading. An increase in the VAT, and I suspect it was in the region of 17 to 18%. That's why I suspect they were heading, Madam President. But we did just the reverse. Again, opposite philosophy and ideology, Madam President. When they say up, we go down. And when they go down, we go up. That's the difference, Madam President. That's the difference. Madam President, and for those who said that the VAT didn't cause anything to happen in the grocery stores, I want, Madam President, to refer you to Economic and Social Review, page 48. Counterbalancing these upward movements in the CPI basket were reductions in other sub-indices, because, Madam President, with the calculation of inflation, you have it's a compilation of various indexes, So you have a food index, you have a health index, you have clothing and wear index. So each of these subsectors have their own inflation. And you take the aggregate of all these sub to get the overall inflation rate. And what happened in the last year, Madam President? Inflation only went up by 0.1%. 0.1%, in spite of, Madam President, of inflationary pressures. In spite of. So, Madam President, notably, the index for food and non-alcoholic beverages, which accounts for the largest share of the CPI basket, declined by 0.9%. Look at here, Madam President. They said it couldn't work. Look at here, Madam President. Right before our eyes, Madam President, it worked, it's working, and it will continue to work. Because, Madam President, we on this side, we don't do things haphazardly, ad hocly, Madam President. Well planned and also well executed. So when we wake up, when we see things happen, Madam President, they don't take us by surprise. We are precise. And Madam President, I was on the other side at one time. I was there. I didn't lose my way. I lost my head when I went there. I didn't lose my way. I lost my head when I was over there. Because, Madam President, no strategy. None at all. None at all, Madam President. Absolutely none. None at all, Madam President. So, Madam President, right here, food and non-alcoholic beverages went down by 0.9%. The impact of our VAT, Madam President. Another interesting aspect of that VAT, Madam President, is the clothing and footwear index. It shows on that very same page, Madam President, it fell by 16.7%. So it's working. It's working, Madam President. It's working. Madam President, another area of interest, Madam President, in terms of macroeconomic indicators, performance, is that of employment. Employment. Employment, Madam President, as we speak, is down. I'm saying to you, Madam President, we are the opposites here. The unemployment went down, Madam President. We are the opposites. They brought it up, and we brought it down. And the irony, Madam President, is that they said that they would have created jobs and jobs and jobs. Apparently, they created joblessness. Because it went from, I think, around the region of 20% to 24.5%. The highest ever recorded in this country, Madam President. Highest ever. It's an opposition of records, Madam President. And bad records, by the way, bad records. So today, this administration, though they want to take credit for it, so absurd, so ridiculous, Madam President. Win government, win government for almost 2 years, but they want to take the credit for all the good things that we have done. Very ironic. Today, the unemployment rate, Madam President, is at 20.1%. And, Madam President, we have not even started yet, We are just warming up as a country, as a government. We are just warming up. We are just warming up, Madam President, because a very important aspect of our development and growth is foreign direct investment. We love the foreigners, Madam President, because the foreigners are our friends and family. We love the people of this country, Madam President, because they are our friends and family. We love them. So it hurts me, Madam President, when the opposition can take on investors, take them on, disrespect them. It's very sad, Madam President, because part of our growth is that of foreign direct investment. And as soon as a paper was leaked, I guess, the cabinet made an announcement, the cabinet made a decision, okay, to exempt a particular, in fact, it's well known, Sandals, from the payment of the taxes. That same madam from Kasri, member from Kasri South, that same member came on TV. He made noise. It's like he's a guru. He thinks he's a guru. Madam President, I am trying to refrain myself from taking him on, Madam President, because for some reason he seems to be trying to lure me. He seems to be trying to lure me, but, Madam President, I am not attracted to him, Madam President. I'm not attracted to him. I am not. He's trying to turn me on, Madam President. Or not turn me on, but take me on. But I am not interested in him. And the funny thing about the Madam President, I don't want to go there, but the member opposite brought my wife into this thing, in the House, and talk about morality. Morality. Who can stand before anyone and say they clean? Tell me. Morality? Or morality? Madam President, I want to refer the House to John chapter 8. John chapter 8. Read it. When they brought the woman they claimed was caught in adultery, the scribes and Pharisees, all of a sudden, they're righteous. And they have brought the woman they claimed that was caught in adultery before God. So all the marginals now are righteous. All the rapists now stand before Christ are righteous. All those who have blood on their hands, they are righteous. All those, Madam President, who have broken families, who have broken married families, they are now righteous. And asking the Lord to stone her to death. We can't talk, let's not bring morality here in this house, period. Let's not talk about it. Because the response that the Lord gave to the so-called righteous people, the righteous little gods we have around on Facebook everywhere. He who is without sin, cast the first stone at her. Madam President, it'll never stop. If we start it, it'll not stop. Because, Madam President, chief of sinner do I be. Chief of sinner do I be. And all of us, and Madam President, I am not condoning or promoting immorality in this country. Period. But when it comes to morality, let's not bring it in this house. Because you uncover mine, I can uncover yours too. But who am I to do that? Can I stand before God as a righteous person? Can you? Anyway, Madam President. But the member for Castries South, I want to say to him, Madam President, I'll be very direct and very straight. Because I'm straight, Madam President. I'm straight.
Point of order, 46A, Madam President. Can we stick to the substantive motion of the appropriations bill?
Leader of Government Business, you are speaking to me. You said you want to speak to the gentleman from Castries South. You're speaking to me. Please proceed.
Thank you, Madam President. I will move on, Madam President. I'll move on. So, Madam President, I was talking about the importance of foreign investors in this country. And when we as a cabinet decided and made a decision to exempt that particular investor from paying the taxes that he didn't owe. And I'll explain it, Madam President. I'll explain it. That particular member, Madam President, from Castries South made a big brouhaha. And Madam President, it's very simple, you know. If you want information, there is always somebody in government who can answer your questions, Madam President. There's always somebody. If you truly want answers, they are there. The answers are there. Just a phone call away. And there was big news, Madam President, that government gave sandals or exempt or waived 24 point something million for them. 24. Madam President, anybody in this country, any taxpayer, when that person or taxpayer, be it an individual or a business person, a business, pays tax in this country, the tax is assessed by the Inland Revenue. This individual, this business owner, can object based on the assessment, can object. That person has that right. And that is what the hotelier did. And he did it through his consultant, Mr. Richard Peter King. I met with him, the consultant, on 2 occasions to try to understand what really is going on, what really happened. I met with the Comptroller of Inland Revenue to get an understanding what was going on, Madam President. And when I got exactly what was going on, I asked her to please write to or prepare a memo for Cabinet. Cabinet received the memo, Madam President, and we saw it clearly, and Cabinet has it right, clearly that the man or the investor did not owe the government of St. Lucia as he objected. It's not a situation, Madam President. The investor collected money, on behalf of the government, that's not the situation, where the investor collected money on behalf of the government, and the investor is saying, look, right now, it's my money, it's not government money. It has absolutely nothing to do with that, Madam President. It had to do with a particular cost, which a cost we refer to as the premium, insurance premium, that was not included in the financial statements. And Inland Revenue is saying, look, it should. And the hotelier said it should not. And based on the arguments, based on both sides, we as a cabinet made a decision. And we said, Madam President, in fact, the tax amount that was due was not $24.1 million. It was actually $9.4 million with penalties and interests. $9.9 million, bear in mind, 9.4 rather, $9.4 million. That was what I was owed, Madam President. 9.4. And if the government had decided that the hotelier should pay the money, that hotelier had the option, Madam President, of paying just the 9.9 and doing away with the interest and penalties, because that was during the time of the amnesty. The hotelier could have just paid what was due if we had said, look, this is what, we don't agree with your assessment, we don't agree with your objections. And Madam President, the opposition hit at the hotelier. But Madam President, you do not bite the hands that feed you. Listen, you don't bite the hands that feed you. You don't bite the hands that feed you, Madam President. Because you know what, Madam President? As of last month, March 2018, that particular investor with an 80% occupancy, employed 1,176 persons. Are they friends? Yes. Are they our families? Yes. 1,776 people were employed with that same investor. Which means, Madam President, on an average household of 3 persons. Do the math, Madam President. Do the math. Do the math. Close to 5,000, a little over 5,000 people benefit from this hotelier investor. And as of December, Madam President, December of 2017, this hotelier contributed Madam President, 76 million US dollars to the economy. 76 million US. Do the math. Do the math. And out of that 76 million US dollars, Madam President, 52 million EC dollars was just for salaries. $52 million. And you're anti-foreigner? Anti-foreigner? But, Madam President, the irony is, Madam President, you know, when they hit at foreigners, especially this hotelier, I am not too sure the farmers are happy. I am not too sure if the taxi drivers are happy. Of course, I'm not too sure if the workers are happy. Madam President, I'm wrapping up. I'm wrapping up. Madam President, you may recall in the lower house, that the member for Castries Southeast spoke of the hypocrisy. Hypocrisy. Cabinets considered a memorandum dated 22nd May 2014. 2014, submitted by the Department of Finance, Economic Affairs and Social Security, and approved the following on behalf of Premium Hotel Investors Limited, Smugglers Cove Resort and Spa. 100% waiver of outstanding hotel accommodation tax. 100% waiver of outstanding vendors tax. 100% waiver of outstanding PAYE, pay as you earn.
Leader of Government Business, may I have a copy of what you're quoting from?
Yes, ma'am. I have one copy, madam, and as soon as I proof it, I'll give it to you. It's a cabinet conclusion, madam. Okay, it's number 25 of 295 of 2014, and 100% waiver of outstanding withholding tax. Hear this, Madam President. Hear this. Cabinet agreed that the waivers are granted on the basis that the best efforts are made to maintain employment levels by Smugglers Cove Resort and Spa upon the sale of the property. That's a bailout. That's a bailout. This is the bailout. This is the bailout that you spoke about. This is the bailout. But you know, Madam President, my apologies, Madam President. Madam President, you know, when this was read in the House, Madam President, I asked myself the question, you know, apart from the hypocrisy of the opposition, where we exempted or waiver, or we not in pardon, we agreed with the assessment on the objection of the investor based on the arguments that they presented, that they should not pay the taxes because we believe that they didn't owe the taxes. They claim it was a bailout. But look, the bailout right before us, Madam President. But, you know, when the member from Castries South, Madam President, when he, you know, presented this to the House, the first question that came to mind is, I just wonder how much. How much was the bailout? How much was the bailout? How much was the bailout? Well, you'll find out. I will tell the House the amount of the bailout. Madam President, and just remember, these were monies collected on behalf of the government. HAT, Hotel Accommodation Tax. That was money collected. That's government money. That's our money. That's our money. That's our money. Yes, that's our money. Hotel accommodation tax. You have withholding tax on top of that. And Madam President, you also have monies that were collected from the employers. Employees rather, Madam President. Pay as you earn. On behalf of the government. Where are the monies? And how much was the amount? I'm coming with it, Madam President. I'm coming with it. Who's that here? Hey, right before me. Right before me, Madam President. Madam President, you know, they said we gave away $24 million. Do you know how much the bailout was, Madam President? $23.4 million of government money, the people's money. $23.4 million, that's the bailout. That's the bailout. Now, Madam President, I'm not saying if we were not in the same position, we were the government then, we would not have done it, Madam President. I'm not saying that. Because, after all, we are for friends, family, and foreigners. We are. But, Madam President, to be clothed with hypocrisy, Madam President, and come and talk about we have given away the people's money. No! This government did not give away anybody's money. But the last administration gave away the people's money of $23.4 million. That's the hypocrisy. That's the hypocrisy. So you had, Madam President, the hotel accommodation tax, $11.8 million. My goodness. We have no issue with that, you know, because we understand that investors and businesses sometimes go through hardship. We understand that. We understand that. But don't be, anyway. Madam President, there's a lot I can talk about here. But I will be very considerate, Madam President. But there is just one more thing I want to talk about. One more thing here. And it has to do with the theme of this budget. And there's a key word. There's a key word called resilience. A key word called resilience. Very key. And Madam President, when we speak of resilience, by the way, resilience, Madam President, it first appeared in the 1970s in scientific literature. In the scientific literature of ecology, biodiversity, and more recently in climate change. But as recent as 2009, Madam President, the word resilience came up in the economic literature. And it came at a time when the world was experiencing the greatest financial meltdown. And how is it defined, Madam President? It's basically it's the capacity. It's the capacity of a system to generate itself after a particular shock. That's the definition in the scientific literature. But when it comes to economic literature, Madam President, it's also the capacity of an economy, Madam President, to resist a particular shock and to recover rapidly to previous level of growth or better.
Madam President, point of order. Madam President, I've received a copy of a document called Cabinet Conclusion. There's no, the way this is printed, Madam President, I do not know if it is actually the memo taken to Cabinet or the actual conclusion taken by Cabinet.
What is the number of the point of order?
It says conclusion.
Senator, may I have the point of order that you're referencing?
Madam President, if I read carefully, it says big and bold, Cabinet conclusion. Number 295 for 2014. So, Madam President, I was in putting the the appropriations bill together, Madam President. What's behind the numbers? What's behind the numbers? What is behind the policy, Madam President, is that of resilience. And as I said earlier, we as a fragile, small developing state, we are subject and open to many shocks. And we have not just economic shocks, Madam President, but we are also vulnerable to natural disasters. So it's important that when we put our appropriations bill together, that we bear this in mind. We want to ensure, Madam President, that should the country receive a natural or economic shock, we are able to recover quickly to the point where we were, or even better. Very important, Madam President. And I don't have enough time to show you the various projects that the government is undertaking or will undertake to ensure that we have that kind of resilience, economic resilience. But, Madam President, I just want to draw your attention how serious this resilience is, Madam President. Because Dominica has undergone a very devastating hurricane. We know that, Hurricane Irma. Madam President, the total loss to Dominica's economy, the total loss, in fact, damage, $2.5 billion. The damage, $2.5 billion. And in terms of losses, Madam President, just above $1 billion. $1 billion. Or 1,000 million. A different way of equating $1 billion. 100 or 1,000 million. So the total damages and losses to the Dominican economy, $3.5 billion. And that, Madam President, represents 226% of its GDP. 226. Now, in the context of St. Lucia's economy, had we received the same damage or equal damage, our damage and loss, Madam President, would have been in the region of $11 billion. $11 billion. So, Madam President, well, I said to you earlier that I will not, go into detail as to how we considered the importance of resilience. This appropriation bill, Madam President, takes this resilience into consideration. So, Madam President, I am pleased, I'm very pleased that this side of the House is able to present to you an appropriation bill in the amount of $1,487,583,200 EC dollars, or $1,487,000 million, the equivalent. Because, Madam President, there are some individuals who understand billions better than thousands. Thank you, Madam President.
Honorable Senators, the question is that the Appropriation 2018-2019 bill be read a second time. Senator Henry.
Yes, let me have this. Thank you very much, Madam President. Madam President, can I take just leave to wish you congratulations on your appointment and welcome you to the leadership of this chamber. And I wish you the very best in this very important journey of your career. Madam President, I too started my journey here a few months ago, and I wish to pledge my support to this honorable House under your presidency, as well as to continue through the leader of the opposition to represent the business of all St. Lucians, as they deserve to be well represented. Madam President, I have listened this morning to the presentation made by the other side. And there's so many things that rush my mind, and I try to contain myself as to what should lead my contribution this morning. But before going further, Madam President, I just need to make use of Hansard from a statement made by the leader of government business on this side last year about the same time when we discussed, when there was a debate on the appropriation bill, and I quote, "Mr. President, my colleague senators ask me the question, what is there to rebut when there is not an opposition? There are two independent senators, although there is not much to rebut, because their contribution was more support and advice and more or less guidance, very good ones, from the current government, which I appreciate very much." And he went on to say, "So unfortunately, there is not much to rebut, but to give some support to somewhat what has been said or was said by my colleagues, and just to say thanks to the independent senators," unquote. Madam President, you would understand my posture here. On this side, all of us, as we attempt to prosecute a very important historical discussion in the matter of the people's business in St. Lucia. Madam President, I know that there is a price to pay when you speak in this country and in this House. A very high price, sometimes one of embarrassment, one of victimization, a price to be paid for speaking. And sometimes, even as my heart trembles as to what should I say, I ask myself, if I do not speak the truth, what price is there to be paid? And Madam President, I can tell you that there is even a higher price to be paid when you do not speak the truth in this parliament. And that price is paid by your children, your grandchildren, for generations when you do not speak what is correct. Madam President, ek jodi a zot pa kay distwe mwen, paske zot ni an manye ka vin isi a just pou distwe. Me zot pa kay distwe mwen. Mwen kay pale, paske lan yo chay bagay pou di. So, Madam President, as I know, listening to the Hansard, rebuttal will be very important today from this side. As you listened to the presentation from the leader of government business, there was so much about communists. And he went back. He went back. Could not have moved forward with the business that is before us, the appropriations bill. He went back. They're always looking backward. A government of dark valleys, graveyards, and dead people over there. A gouvernement qui n'a rien pour faire avec les gens qui vivent plutôt les gens qui morts. He's talk of sojourn and whatever. But the people of St. Lucia, they're asking today, what is it? What is it that we are doing? But Madam President, I will speak because I'm here today to share some light. And that light will dispel darkness. Madam President, the business of this house is about the people. So I will speak. I shall speak, for the Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the stronghold of my life. In whom shall I be afraid? No one. So I shall speak. And I shall speak specifically on behalf of the poor people and marginalized of this country. I shall speak because this government have submitted an appropriation bill as best can be described as a deficit widening, surplus reducing mission to the IMF, but with benefits for friends, families, and foreigners. FFF. I would have hoped that this government side would have come and discussed FFF as furniture, fittings, and fixtures for St. Jude. But no. He preferred to speak about friends, families. But I'll get into St. Jude in a while. Madam President, he made the point that this budget, the theme of this budget, building resilience today for the future. At the very least, Madam President, a 2018-2019 budget should reflect sound investment, promotion for the future, and at least while maintaining positive surplus. If you're going to talk about resilience in an appropriation bill, these are two important characteristics. Sound investment while maintaining a surplus. Madam President, as evidenced in this 2018 budget summary, it records a surplus in 2016-2017 of 94 million. Look at your budget summary. The projected outturn of 2017-2018 is 63 million, registering a 39% decline in current surplus for the period. And for 2018-2019 for the fiscal year, a further decline of 37%. This recurrent deficit continues to widen, Madam President. The projected outturn for the recurrent surplus for the year 2017-18, a financial year, stands at negative 62 million. And it is projected to expand at minus 94 million. Moi, c'est ça, zot vini ici. Zot pas vini ici à préparer pour parler, mais zot vini ici à préparer pour détruire. Parole fil sac, parole bok, chimé, parole kabawe, c'est ça zot ka parler. But let me move on, and you shall not disturb me. Madam President, allow me to elaborate. The fiduciary management of this government is extremely poor. They can't manage money. And one of the things I would say, Madam President, in management, just to deviate a bit, Madam President, staffing is the most important function a manager can do. Staffing. And I'm sure bankers and persons who have held positions in management positions, senior management position, would appreciate that staffing is the most important thing you could do. Madam President, after listening to the presentations over the years from this side, by the government leading the business of the government, I think if I had my way, I would write into the Constitution to ensure that any economist participating to lead government business must at least have some experience in running the public service. 2, must be somebody who have trained at the University of the West Indies and understand small island development state politics. You take somebody from the US, I don't care what PhD you have, whether you're a doctor, whether you're a Bush doctor, whether you're involved in whatever it is, you do not understand the business of small island development state. And like you said, you do not buy the hands that feed you. It's a very important concept and philosophy of this side. You do not buy the hands that feed you. We are prepared to sacrifice. It's not about us, it's about the people of St. Lucia. It's not the hands that feed us, but the hands that take care of the people of St. Lucia. So I'll move on, Madam Speaker. This budget epitomizes the contempt this government has for the people of St. Lucia, especially the public servants. And I've listened to some of the presentations made by the Prime Minister. Sometimes I'm wondering whether he's so emotional that at certain points of his presentation, as if he wants to cry. I have respect for the man as the Prime Minister of St. Lucia. But as a St. Lucian, if you're going to cry for St. Lucians who are struggling, it ought to be sincere. Madam President, and I forgot, you may refer to me anytime, Madam President, if I'm going off, as Senator Henry. But I want to make this point. Poor people. And no one comes to mind than my mother, who sold charcoals, coals. You say charcoal in St. Lucia. Charbon for all her life. When she was working at the Marian home, wee hours of the morning, when she tried to get at 5 o'clock, men on the street tried to rape and go after her. She did not cry. And when she took the fishing boat to migrate to Martinique to care for me and to send little bits of food in what they call a bidon, she did not cry. Poor people do not cry. Crying is far past. When the Prime Minister tries to cry for poor people, what he must do is to put money for poor people. And I will speak about the monies this morning. Now I'll talk about poor people. So every time, under the theme, bread, justice, and freedom, when the Labour Party has embarked to move this country forward, of course, and like you have made use of biblical scriptures so much, I don't want to talk about biblical scriptures, but I cannot help to remember the children of Israel in the wilderness on the way to the promised land who gave much problems because some of them had tasted what it is to enjoy the fat of Egypt and gave Moses problems. And sometimes we are delayed to the promised land because people from Egypt who have tasted the fat, who have tasted the good wine, selfishly retard progress. And our stint here today is not because we have failed. It's just part of the road to the promised land. We are moving because we will return to continue the work that we've started. But Madam President, to the substantive issue of the appropriation bill, I just want to show you, I want to just make use of 3 areas of concern. And I did not say to the UWP their philosophy, whether they are capitalists. My member here said that we have a communist philosophy. I do not know whether to go to the leader of the opposition and say, Leader, you did not prepare me for this budget presentation because it was not about the appropriation bill. It was about communists and capitalists. But it's good to make this contribution when you have nothing to say about the substantive issue. Took 25 minutes to talk about communists. 45 minutes to say that the Labour Party communists. And of course, everybody is starting to prepare the presentation. Because the Labour Party, we are always prepared. And we have something to say. Madam President, this is the budget. And I wish for St. Lucians, yeah, that's all I prepared. Here, you will see it. A budget, Madam President. 1.4 billion, 1.5 billion, I'll round it off. The budget. And out of this, you have 1.2 billion for recurrent expenditure. Well, let me tell you, that's what you're about. Backward. Let me tell you, you got the reins of power to move this country forward. You cannot help but to go backward. How weak such a government is. Go backward. Zodia Zodnibudi tut saki affect. Except tell the people how we're moving forward. $1.2 billion in recurrent expenditure. Say kote. And I want St. Lucians to see you, Mr. Cameraman. You need to take it to St. Lucians. Say kote tout salaire. That's where salaries are paid. This is where the business of government continue to operate at the 1.2 billion. Et asuti kwas la la yokuye capital expenditure tikwas. So there's 1.5 billion for as the government budget. Say sa yo kay depase la ne sala yo di. Eklani 1.2 billion recurrent. Ek yo ni an tikwas la yo kuye capital. Se la yo kay fe paye avin pligo. Se la yo ka fe investment pou fe bagay nef. $1.5 billion, recurrent expenditure 1.2 billion, capital 0.3 billion. But I'll show you something, Madam President. Look at what is in the details of the capital. Tikwasla, tikakadan yonila. Look at what it is for. And this is where you get the FFF. Friends, families, and foreigners. Madam President. First thing that stands out, consultancy, 47 million. I'm going to come back to that. Who participates in consultancy in St. Lucia? The banana farmers? No. The poor people by the market? No. 47 anti-kaka down là ou attirer 37 million dollars pour faire consultancy. But I'll come to that. Because there are 3 departments I'll look at. The next one, machinery and equipment. Acheter motocar. You need 29 million dollars qui dépenser là en petit cacadan. You understand? They'll buy cars, they'll buy equipment. This is a government that's moving the country forward. Further, there's a capital grant. 27 million. You know what's a capital grant? C'est là how can buy on lot department government. They will give tourism $27 million grant under this capital. C'est budget, c'est budget là, yo ka fait pour job move là. Et yo mettez $120 million pour faire chimèque building. Ça, moi kay vinn détail l'Italie, moi kay dou ki ça yo ka fait. Parce que là yo ka bay yon homme qui responsable projet gouvernement. That man, he referred to him as king. Et qui manière parler à higher king. Moi ça veut dire high king parce qu'on te monté against king. You spoke so much about king, and how the king is not good for St. Lucia. You know that, buddy. I understand why you do not like king, because you went up against king. But king gets half of that, approximately 42 million. And there's an honorable member for Castries North. My apologies, Madam President. And there is another one who gets the other half. He is the minister responsible for economic development. Economic development, according to the estimate, has a mission. It is resource mobilization. Yes, sir. Zot connaît comme zot bien comment. Zot connaît comme zot. Economic development getting the other half of roads and buildings. Guess what? Out of the recurrent expenditure, Kote Lani Saleh, Ministry of Infrastructure, Kingna, Hani presque $40 million ek moun établi pour faire travail, faire chimé, ou building. Ministry of Economic Development ni about 6 pani moun pour faire travail, faire building. Mais regardez ça. Changez-moi d'où là ni tout salaire pour courir payer $500 million en ça, 1.2. Madam President, salaries and wages, $23 million in capital program. Suwaka ni $500 million in salaries and wages. Why do you have $23 million in capital for wages and salaries? That's a simple answer. Friends, families, and foreigners. But this one is very interesting. 14 million for training. $14 million for training. So on the capital program, you have a Ministry of Education on the recurrent expenditure. Exchange, Ihala, 1.2 billion, Ministry of Education, lani saleh, lani travail yaka fait. Mais on training, monte ka expert, ou te ka invite Ministry of Education, qui ni kante teacher, qui ni kante professionnel, qui ni kante bagay pour buy $12 million pour continuer travail. Ah non, ou pas kay fait ça. Training, gasa ou fait cli. Madam President, ou buy Prime Minister 7 million, et ou buy Minister of Economic Development 2.something million. Except by education, 500,000. Capital program, PSIP, Public in Sector Investment Program. The party that's about leading this country to the promised land. Kotea. You know, Madam President, my stint here may be a very short one. I do not, and I purpose my heart not to overstay in the business of politics in St. Lucia. And that is why I am going to say what I have to say, quick and fast and to the point and truth. I speak truth to power, that the changes to St. Lucia will come. I have not spoken a lie. I have not characterized anybody here. I have not attacked anybody. So I ask the question, Madam President, with such clear, crystal, I ask myself, is this proper fiduciary management? But Madam President, I will move my presentation forward by asking a few questions of this government. But before I ask the question, I want to make reference to a document. And I'm asking, has this government understood the business of this country is really the people's business? I ask the question because it appears that this presentation was given with some secrets. Some things were not, some things were held back. And I will move to quote from the Prime Minister's budget address last financial year. Oila. Last year, the Prime Minister in his budget presentation. You see, you must not go back. What you must do, you must reference what you say you're going to do and did you do it. Page 22. Huh? Let me tell you. Well, the people of St. Lucia will understand what I'm doing. Ici, c'est pas check-up-es. Ça pas check-up-es. That's not a joke thing. That's a serious thing. So the people will understand what I'm talking about. Ou pas rapporter moi pièce. Page 22. He used the term re-engineering social services. And when he said engineering social services, he made a statement, Madam Speaker, we must reform our social protection system in order to assure access to services for those most in need. It is unacceptable that in this era of technology, where the need for data and evidence-based decision must be incessant, that we are referring to poverty data that is over 10 years old. He said that, unquote. And he said, we will therefore initiate the new system of supporting and conduct a country poverty assessment. Madam President, a country poverty assessment is a very important document that will speak to the policies and direction of any government. And I have been making reference to the country poverty assessment, 10 years old, that stated that poverty at that time was 28.8% of the population, and there was an indigent. The indigent was 1.8. Madam President, I noticed in the estimates of expenditure last year there was $500,000 for the country poverty assessment. But this year it is zero. So I ask whether there was a country poverty assessment done. No, I'm not talking about consultancy. No, that's not where I'm going. I'm going, listen carefully. So I called the Ministry of Social Transformation because I know over 15 years that I've been part to this initiative. Yes, in 2016 there was the survey of living condition conducted where 1,000 plus persons in poor communities were interviewed. Sapa l'église, c'est pas ça là, qu'à shift. And I asked, what happened? I was told, and I discovered, that this administration pressed the statistics department that you hail so well and say that such a department is so important. You need the information for budget. You need 3 times the World Bank. Work with the statistics department to provide a summary of the data on the country poverty survey, yet no mention of it was made in this house. And I thought, Madam President, that it was not mentioned in the lower house, that the learned leader of government business, who spoke so highly of the statistics department, would have said that they gave us some information as it relates to poverty, knowing that last year the Prime Minister spoke about it. Madam President, I got a copy of the summary of the survey of living condition, poverty of St. Lucia, prepared by the Statistics Department. And Madam President, they did not use it. They did not mention. Why? Why? Because, Madam President, there's 2 things that are important, and I spoke with the statistician, Mr. Edwin. Oh, you want a copy of the house? It will be made a copy of the house, Madam President. Because it's your business, and I know you have it. You have it. But when it was given to you, you were not interested in it. Why? Put you party mele ou party ni pièce terrorisme pour ou mande pour lui tellement ou mettez département about pressure for your bausa. You know why, Madam President? That poverty, the poverty statistic had reduced. It had moved from 28.8% to 25% under the reigns of the St. Lucia Labour Party. And as a, yeah, no, I present the copy. You can't hand me, Papa. Let me just say what I'm saying. You'll get a copy. Okay, you'll take it. Take it, Madam President. Make a copy of it. I hope you're familiar with it. I hope you're familiar with it. You see, instead of talking about communism, instead of talking about all of these things, you should have come here prepared and make use of the information that has been given to you. Vous parlez toute l'autre bagaille, puis tout parlez affaires pays. And you know what, Madam President? In the summary, there's not a number for indigents. At the time of the last country poverty survey, indigents was 1.8% of the population. 1.8, Madam President, indigents are persons living below the poverty line. People who are extremely poor. And under the last, Madam President, under the last country poverty survey, an indigent family was considered or was described as a family whose house didn't have flooring. They were living on soil. They had nothing like electricity, water. One important characteristic of an indigent family, they did not have no way of disposing of their waste. Your pateni toilet, your pateni bike or her. 1.8% under this new country poverty survey. The statistician said the figure was so small that they did not record a number. Madam President, I just need to make use of a document.
Leader of opposition business, you have 15 minutes.
15 more minutes.
Madam President, I beg to suspend Standing Order 35-1 to allow the member an extra half hour within which to complete his presentation.
The standing order is 35-1. Suspend.
I'll go down into from there. I'll go down into this.
Honorable Senators, the question is that Standing Order 35-3 be suspended to allow Senator Henry an additional 30 minutes to make his contribution. I now put the question. As many as are of that opinion say aye. As many as who are of a contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it, the ayes have it. Leave is granted.
Thank you very much, colleagues. Thank you very much, senators. This is on behalf of the people of St. Lucia. We reward you at the right time. So, Madam President, as I was saying, that things had changed and there were interventions made that led to, one, a reduction in poverty, headcount, from 28.8 to 25%. A reduction in indigence, extreme poverty. But, Madam President, this document, I've made a document of the House previously. It's an SSDF. This is really an investigation done by UNICEF of the SSDF work. Madam President, I was responsible for poverty reduction program for the past 15 years at the St. Lucia Social Development Fund. And UNICEF independently did an assessment of a specific program. And I wish to just mention just one paragraph in this program, and I quote, the intent of the 2-year pilot was to reduce poverty of the 46 indigent families by facilitating access to income, employment, housing, health, education, family counseling,
a network that would fortify family assets. The crux of the intervention theory was that if a household portfolio capabilities is not sufficient or the family does not have the opportunity to acquire them, the ability to escape poverty will remain limited. Over half of the 41 families surveyed reported an increase in confidence to do the following: look for work, keep their children at school, manage vulnerabilities, difficulties, and responsibilities as head of the household. UNICEF investigation on the Kudmes FEC program. Madam President, I'm not surprised that under this poverty assessment that this administration has kept. Don't break the glass, brother. Don't break the glass. No time for breaking glass. No time for breaking glass. No time for breaking glass. Let's contain ourselves here. I am not surprised, Madam President, that the gains made or the information cited in the last country poverty survey that this administration has kept away from this honorable house has made such gains. But I'll move on. They are good in rebutting, Madam President. Rebutting. In fact, most of those who stand at this side will do this. So here are the questions, Madam President, I wish to ask. Some of which an attempt was made to answer. Question 1. The average St. Lucian really want to understand why is VAT still in this document. They want to know why it has not been removed completely. They are asking that question. I'll tell you why. Because in the Prime Minister's presentation last year, when he presented, he said, Madam Speaker, one of the promises made in our 2016 manifesto is to provide tax relief to St. Lucians in this area of personal and corporate tax income and VAT. In keeping with this promise, on the 1st of February, we reduced VAT from 15% to 12% as part of the initial. Coleston. Oh, come in. We pon disemunasa. The question initial. Initial. Okay, initial. Changer cette liste par couillon. Let's say there. Okay, initial. It come in. So the people of St. Lucia must understand that you will eventually remove it completely. That's right. Second question. Madam President, I need to ask a very important question. And I'll do this through a manual PowerPoint. Or I will illustrate something. The question about the Victoria Hospital. The question was placed before us. Why is it that we did not complete the hospital in 5 years? Very important question. I attempted, St. Jude's, and I attempted to answer that question through social media. Madam President, I have maybe 3 years as a politician, but more than 25 years as a quantity surveyor. My first degree and my master's is in quantity surveying. I've been a president of the St. Lucia Quantity and Valuation Surveyors. I taught cost estimating for over 10 years at Sir Lewis. I personally can confess that I am a cost expert. I can confess, and that's how, when I left London, my tutors referred to me. So I asked the question. The question was asked, why is it that the hospital could not have been completed in 5 years? In answering this question, Madam President, I want to put on display this, Madam President, and I hope this document. Madam President, this is the Soufrière Square area. 13,000 square foot of land to build a square. Yes, a little less than quarter of an acre. An acre is 45,360 square foot. So, yes, about 13, yes. The Soufriere Square is bounded by 4 roads on all sides. It's fully demarcated. Madam President, this project started with us and was stopped after we had spent approximately $1 million on it. I understood that they settled the contractor approximately $1.6 million. The project was in progress, approximately 50% complete. Madam President, 2 years in the making, this project has not been completed. Last year in this honorable house, Senator Belrose indicated that the project would have been completed February of 2017. Madam President, you're not a technical person, but you could understand complexities of project. You would know what your landscaping around your house look like and what your building would look like. Madam President, this is mere landscaping, hard landscaping. And I will show it in another form, Madam President. This is what it would look like, hard landscaping. A few walls, a few trees planted. Madam President, over 2 years, they said that they would complete it. It has not been completed. It has not been completed. Madam President, when you juxtapose this by this document, St. Jude Hospital, which sits on 15 acres of land, 15 acres of land, Madam President. And I have researched and have implemented projects, Madam President, over my life at the Ministry of Planning and through the public service. Madam President, I do not take anything away from professionals in this country and those who've worked to serve us. Of course, we may have management issues. We are not a perfect jurisdiction in terms of project implementation. And of course, we will have tiffin issues. We'll learn certain things. Sometimes, Madam President, we need to import foreign materials and have new techniques. That is challenged. A hospital is not a residential building with a kitchen, living room, and dining room, Madam President. So, we were accused, and as a result, we lead into investigation to justify why 15 acres. 15 acres is 45,360. Multiply by 15. Why this could not have been completed in 5 years. But they have not been able to complete just landscaping in the Soufriere Square of 14,000 square foot over 2 years. Gentlemen, $1 million, 50 million, 5 years, 3 years you have not completed. Come on. Come on. Come on, you get dates. You know, Madam President, you spoke about my member here spoke about hypocrisy. I do not want to use that term. I don't want to use it. It's painful. Madam President, for what people in St. Lucia go through, if I had my way, I probably would lead to augment significant parts of the constitution of St. Lucia, because this presentation was very painful to the hearts and souls of St. Lucians. Very painful. Hypocrisy. I believe this is the largest room in hell. Yes, this would be. Because if you're not a pedophile, hypocrite you would be. If you're not stealing, you would go to the hypocrite department. Anything you're doing and you're not doing and you say you're not doing it, hypocrisy is where you ought to be. So I see hypocrisy would be the largest room in hell. No, Mary, you should know a lot more about Ministry of the Body Health issue in St. Lucia. And I'm saddened by the fact that they're leaving you out of the discussion. Because had they included you, you would have provided...
Senator Henry.
My apologies, madam.
Yes, you're speaking to me.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. That's why I always said to you that I have extreme confidence in the leadership of this chamber. Thank you for setting me straight.
Back on track.
Back on track as we are. And I'm telling you that it's important that we must find the resort to speak truth to power. Speak truth to power. I know you want to... It's embarrassing at this point in time. It is embarrassing for the country to be in such state. And I have recorded in Hansard some of the statements made by the members on the independent side. Some of the guidance that were given, that you welcome, that you've not implemented. During those days, I was extremely silent. Oh yes, because I am new to this thing and I thought independents were just another way of calling the government side. That's how I interpreted it. I never viewed them as independent. I never. I didn't see it that way. But I listened to their contribution. But now I understand that while you try to embrace them, it was almost like using snake oil to bring them onto your side without heeding their instructions. Not that I'm asking them to be on that side. I'm not. You could only stand from where you're sitting. If you want to stand with me, you'll find a way on the market step very soon. Madam President, so this St. Jude thing, painfully as it is, as a quantity surveyor, I wish I didn't understand quantity surveying to speak about St. Jude in this house. You have other persons here, and I hope technical people can find a way to navigate around this nasty politics. Sorry, Madam President. Madam President, I want to move to the next point. Why is it, and St. Lucians want to understand, why is it apart from the $36 million you have for consultancy, you have an extra $14 million for professional consultancy in recurrent expenditure? That makes it $50 million. Lord have mercy. $50 million in consultancies. Consultancies. St. Lucians cannot get work. You cannot give civil servants a salary increase. You cannot give the police officers salary increase, but you have $50 million this year to spend in consultancies. I don't know. I do not know. I'm asking the question. I'm asking the question. Do not take me back. Don't take me back. 50 million. And part of the 50 million to do is to do investigation, to find out who stole monies. Madam President, one of the things I know, and I listen to people on the street, especially by the market when I go and buy my... Pièce chat, pièce wat, pas jamais fait ça toi pour chebe wat. No rat never set a trap to catch rat. If you want to ensure that you catch a political crook, I don't care what color it is, because you believe that there are red ones to catch, but if there are red rats, sure, you could find amazing, nice, yellow ones. If you want to embark on investigation, consult a few independent lawyers and professionals. Work with the leader of the opposition and put policies in place that we can close those holes where rats pass in. Don't come with this game. You say you're going to put $14 million in recurrent expenditure to do investigation of St. Lucians who've served in this house. Vinnie Eckley.
Madam President, there is no place in the budget that speaks of investigations.
Oh, well, let me quote, Madam President, can I respond to this quickly? And what's standing order anyway? Zot Maconet standing order anyway, sir. 295. There's two forms of consultancies in the estimates of expenditure. One under capital, which is 132, and one under recurrent, which is 295. You go into your estimates of expenditure.
Senator Henry, can I have the page, please?
Madam President, okay, let me give you the page, Madam President. These people prepared that. I thought that they were familiar with it. Okay, on the page, Romuald's number XIV, so you say, what, 14? 42. 142, professional consultancy and services, legal assistance, engineering consultancies, commission of inquiry, arbitration tribunal, and wage councils. Engineering consultancy, commission of inquiry, arbitration tribunals, wage councils. 142. You have 14 million. Under 295, I know you did not pay attention to the professionals, you know. I know that. I know that. 295, consultancy, feasibility, and tendering. Inch, page, X, VI.
My light is on.
16.
Senator Henry, my light is on. Minister for Health and Wellness.
Oh.
Madam President, I stand on Standing Order 37-5 to say that the member is imputing improper motives on the part of this government. There is nowhere in the estimate of expenditure that any item says consultancy for investigations or anything about investigations. I would like for the member to withdraw that statement, please, Madam President.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, look at 132 in terms of I need to help Madam President with this page and look at the definition here. 142. I highlighted it. What it says, 132. So if you go to the estimates, in 132 refer to this. So there's 14 million in the estimates on the recurrent expenditure for this line item. You take the estimates of expenditure and you look at it by sum. You see, if only that you had used the estimates of expenditure instead of talking about communism.
Senator Henry, you asked me to define or to find the definition for commissions of inquiry.
No, it is defined in the estimates of expenditure. So what you have, Madam President...
I am on 32, and I need you to take me to where the definition of commissions of inquiry lies, so that I can read it.
Madam President, they said standard guidelines for standard object classification of recurrent and capital expenditure. This part of the estimates give a definition for whatever line item that is in the estimates. And under 132, line item professional consultancy services, it is said items to be covered: legal assistance, engineering consultancies, commission of inquiry, arbitration tribunal, and wage counsels. The Prime Minister in his presentation in this House said he will pursue an investigation. Under what authority he would if he did not put $14 million in recurrent expenditure under that heading? Where would he pay for it? I'm not insinuating. This is the presentation made by the Minister of Finance, and this is what in the estimates of expenditure. There is $14 million under recurrent expenditure under this classification. Can I proceed with my
Madam Speaker, on a point of order. Madam President, sorry.
Minister for Health and Wellness.
Madam President, thank you. I rise on Standing Order 37-5 to say that the member is imputing improper motives of the Prime Minister. There is no place in this book where it says there is any funding for investigations. Commission of Inquiry does not say investigations. It is Commission of Inquiry. Any other word in there that does not say investigations cannot stand. And I would really gently ask, Madam President, that the member be asked to withdraw that statement that these funds are allocated for investigations.
Commission of Inquiry? What's a Commission of Inquiry?
Senator Henry.
Yes, Madam.
There is, in fact, a line for commissions of inquiry, but it's general in my estimation and does not specify that it is for specific investigations to which the Prime Minister referred. Please withdraw that. Please withdraw your statement.
Madam President, I withdraw the statement investigation and say Commission of Inquiry, as stated there. Pardon me, sir. Who parle about communists, you party do Haiti. Communists, you talk about communists. Anyway, I knew you would try to distract me, but that's all y'all can do. So the $50 million in total for consultancies, 36 million on the capital, 14 million on the recurrent expenditure. You all give it to consultants, that's what it is for. And consultants can fit into the category of friends, families, and foreigners. Let me move on. Madam President, unlike what the member for the leader of government business indicated, there has been an increase in the price of food items. But I suspect, Madam President, that the member is shopping somewhere else and therefore cannot experience the prices that ordinary St. Lucians. That's the only thing I can conclude. But I'll move from that. Continue to shop where you shop in. But there has been an increase in prices, not the Labour Party that said it. Go by the market. Stand up by the supermarket. Sell by les moun ni pouvoir, moun ka vini considérer ou pa rien encore à pas supporter ça qui ça ou. But I understand why you have to support. Madam President, $24 million. Ordinary St. Lucians want to understand. Why? You forgo the collection of $24 million from Sandals. I will say it over and over. You know why? You know why, Madam President? As a civil servant, I have a lot of my friends who have retired from the public service. There's a name I will not call. Sensitivity of family. They retired from the public service and their gratuity was approximately $60,000. Inland Revenue took $40,000 from the person's gratuity because they said they owed taxes. The person subsequently, within weeks, died. They had their bills to pay. I know persons who have refinanced their mortgages just to pay Inland Revenue. You forgo collection of $40 million, appraisal only took lot by Ipudi. And then you want to go back and say, when the Labour Party did it. You sound like children in front of a school headmaster. When they take children to the headmaster for misbehaving, Sir, he did it first. Children. You are given responsibility to move this country forward, but you're failing. Madam President, these people continue to grow and grow one aspect of our society. I'm concerned about the middle business people and the small shops, the small hotels. Very soon we may have one hotel in St. Lucia. Very soon, one hotel we will have. And I even want to call it Sandals. At that time it might be a complete Boots. By Sandals Zoko. One hotel we will have. But you know what, Madam President? As a student that understands and have studied some trees in the forest, even the trees of the forest know the heights at which they will remain to allow for plants, other plants to survive. The massive tree on Derek Walcott Square will not grow any taller because there's other plants around to survive. May Zod Guved Masala, Zod Kajas buy, point to Tut Moon, while the rest of St. Lucia dies.
Leader of Opposition Business, you have 5 minutes.
I will end there. I will come to an end. Madam President, the 289 passports. They messed up CIP. And all of a sudden we cannot get CCIP. CCIP is what? Ching ching in pocket? We cannot get CCIP because you all messed up CIP. Après Hezbollah, you're collecting passports from Hezbollah, you're collecting it from Al-Qaeda, you're collecting passports from all different Al-Qaeda groups because you recognize
Madam President, this is a very dangerous statement, you know. Very dangerous statement, Madam President. For the member to say that we are collecting passports from these kinds of groups, Madam President, this is very dangerous, and you need to withdraw this immediately, Madam President.
Senator Henry, please withdraw the statement.
I withdraw the statement, Madam President. But we are revoking passports from individuals that we do not know where they come from, but they're from the Middle East. And I do not know, Madam President, whether they are from Hezbollah. I do not know whether they are from ISIS. I do not know whether they are from Al-Qaeda. I do not know, but it is scary.
Madam President, again, the member he's imputing very serious motives in Madam President. For him to say we don't know where the passports are coming from or the people are coming from, when there is a well-oiled, diligent, Madam President, sorry?
What is the standing order on
A point of elucidation, Madam President.
Number?
And imputing proper motives, Madam President. And this is very dangerous, Madam President. Sorry, Madam President. Yes, Madam President, it is 37-5, Madam President. And Madam President, this cannot remain in the records of this honourable House, Madam President. This statement by the opposite member,
Madam President,
cannot remain in the records of this House, Madam President. Cannot.
You say we are communists. You say we are associated
Senator
with communists.
Henry. Senator Henry. Please refrain from continuing along this line, and please withdraw your last statement regarding ISIS, etc.
Thank you, Madam President. So withdrawn. Madam President, it is sad in this House when the Labour Party was being aligned in all sorts of characterization for him to make his point. Call us, say we align with communists and all of this sort of thing. Madam President, I do not think this was fair, but he was allowed in the spirit of the discussion. But I will move on, so withdrawn, because Saki Bopu Matiwe, Sipozi Bopu Mati win. Madam President, I will approach the end of my contribution. Madam President, a Prime Minister of a country should not take its people to the edges of despair and unnecessary risk. Leaders must lead with sincerity of care and humility. Madam President, the lives of people in St. Lucia must not be one that people should take for granted. Madam President, this appropriation bill that is before us clearly doesn't demonstrate any movement of our people. Madam President, I cannot ask you to stand with me, even if I'm addressing this House for you. But there's a need for us to stand in this country. I know the independent senators have listened to the presentations made by the member on this side and should have record in their minds to what extent this government has taken heed by the contributions they have made in the past. I am waiting for the paradigm shift in their contribution. Madam President, there comes a time when people must stand and pay a price for standing. That I am prepared to do. And that's why I spoke the way I did. Madam President, it is difficult times, it is scary times when you hear many of St. Lucian passports are being revoked, unprecedented, in a world that is characterized in this geopolitical wars and all sorts of tribal issues that we are not part of. Of course, in the Prime Minister's presentation last year, he made the point as to why he should reduce the cost of investment from 300,000 to 100,000. And we in this House, on this side, did sound that it was not a safe way to move. Today we are reaping it, whatever we want to call it. But I'm not afraid. Embarrassments. I'm not afraid of what will come to me, for there is a higher price to pay if I did not say what I said. Madam President, I'm not hoping to stand on the mountaintop to wave any flag that I have achieved anything. For like I've said, in your private chambers, I will walk through this door when I come to the end of my stint here. But I want to make the point clear that justice, freedom, bread, justice, and freedom, the mantra of the Labour Party, stand even more sure today as the way forward. And as recorded in our poverty assessment, we are concerned about ordinary people. We are concerned about the poor. We are concerned about single mothers and the single-headed households. Family and friends will never, and I will never stand for any approach like this. Madam President, I wish to thank you most dearly, and I hope you all the best as we continue to deliberate on the business of St. Lucia. Thank you.
Honorable Leader of Government Business.
Madam President, I ask that the House or the Senate be suspended until 2:30 this afternoon.
Senators, the question is that this sitting of the Senate be suspended until 2:30 this afternoon. I now put the question. As many who are of that opinion say aye. As many as are of the contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it.
All rise.
This has been the first segment of the Senate debate on the Appropriation 2018-2019 bill in the amount of $1.4 billion. The first presenter was a leader of government business and minister in the Ministry of Finance, Senator the Honorable Dr. Eubaldas Raymond. Opposition Senator Joachim Henry was the morning's second presenter. The sitting has been suspended until 2:30. When the broadcast resumes, 8 senators will take their turn in the debate on the Appropriation 2018-2019 bill. We look forward to rejoining you at 2:30.